I'm going to start a new document. I'm going to have two artboards because I like to work that way, so I can drag from one side to the other, and I'm going to hit create. The first tool that we're going to use is over here. I want you to pull out this rectangle tool. And the way to do it is to pull down on the little arrow and don't let go and pull on this bar right here. And you'll notice that they twirl out. So they come out, unlike Photoshop. So you can hold down on the arrow and then let go on your mouse and it will pop out. All right, other thing I want you guys to do is change your window view. So up here under window workspace, let's work today in Essential Classics so that we're all on the same. If you need to reset it, you can go ahead. And that way I know that you have this bar up here, and this bar, it makes it easy, just like the Photoshop we've been using in the past. You can change everything up here, so it's the same way. All right, once again, go ahead and pull out your shape tool. And then I want you to grab your square tool, the very first one. And you're going to go ahead and click and drag and create a square. Well, more of a rectangle. On a side note, if you hold down Shift when you're using these shapes, they make perfect shapes. So if you wanted a square, you would hold down Shift. Now up here, this bar is now going to control this square, okay? It has 4 points, and those 4 points could have a color, different types of color swatches. Here are the fills. It can have patterns, and it can even have transparency. Next to it, our fill is called the stroke, and the stroke has its own color. The size of it is here in points, again, like font size, and it decides how many points thick the stroke is. The stroke can also be pink, red, whatever color you want, pattern as well, and can also have transparency too. Now we can start to see this actually work over top. Next to the stroke, we have how it's defined. Is it thick to thin? Does it go solid all the way around or uniform? So these different shape profiles will be fun to play with on all of your lines and strokes, not just for these geometric ones. And then lastly, you can decide, let me put this back on black for a second. You can decide what type of stroke it is. Does it look more like a calligraphy pen? Does it have charcoal? Or maybe it has paintbrush? Or maybe it even has dotted jeans around it. So what these are pre-canned sort of defined strokes. Any time today that you see a thing like this library menu, I want you to click on it and pull it down. You hear that? I want you to click down those menus anytime you see them. Because what happens in Illustrator is it means there's a lot more things there that people don't know. And in here you have a different stroke library. So if you're going to go ahead and do like different watercolor effects on a stroke, it will give you a whole palette of different types of watercolor effects. When you click on them, they'll put them around your stroke. Okay, so once again, you have to pull down these libraries when you see them. For instance, I have libraries in almost every single box. One of them would be the color box over here. So when you're in here and you hold this down, you find the library here, and then there's thousands of different colors. Like maybe you're thinking food colors and you want ice cream colors today. So you go down and you select that, and it pulls out a whole category of different Neapolitan ice cream types. All right, let's go find another one. Maybe we want art history, and we want Russian poster art colors, most common red communism, right there, perfect. So that idea of going through and finding color stories that you want, but it also works for the rest of it. The strokes have a library too, right down here. And so do the uniform lines. Oops, sorry, not the uniform lines. I mean this defining of what the stroke is. You have different type of like calligraphy, ink splatters, and they'll come up and they can define the outside of your edge too. So now this is a splatter defining the outside. One really big important thing in Illustrator. There is no move tool like in Photoshop. Instead, you have two arrows. You have a black arrow and a white arrow, okay? Two very big differences. The black arrow, as you see up here, when you grab the black arrow, it will pick up an entire shape. It can also rotate that shape when you hold on the outside of the bounding box. It can scale the shape, right? So rotate, scale, flip. You could even flip it on its own axis too if you wanted to. Now to go backward in Illustrator, it's like Photoshop now. You can hit Command Z as many times as you want to go back. To go back the other way, it's Command Shift Z. Command Shift Z goes back the other way in history. So Command Z to undo, Command Shift Z to back the other way. Okay, versus the white arrow. And what the white arrow does is you can click on one point and move it. So if you want to alter your shapes, you use the white arrow. You can also shift click on two different points and you can move 2 points at the same time, like I am doing with this one now, moving it over. So that's called shift clicking if you want to. But just remember the white arrow is part of something. And the black arrow is going to pick up something in entirety, the whole thing. You can also rotate it. You can also scale it and change the size. Okay, so let's get into using Adobe Illustrator now. All right, I want to start in a workspace. So if you remember, we go up to Window for that. Window, I want you to work in a workspace as, it's called Essential Classics. And it will bring that top bar back in that I'm used to working with you guys in Photoshop on the top. If you're using an older version, it's just going to be called Essentials, but the newer version is calling it Classic. And then we're just going to go in here and start looking at some of the tools. So once again, the window is up here under Workspace, Essentials Classic. All right, and then let's go over to this first shape tool down here. And note that I'm going to work on a single bar, so I'm just going to put it over there to do that. If you pull this down and you don't let go, don't let go, don't let go, and hold on the edge there, this will twirl out. So once again, you hold this little tiny button here down, pull over, twirl out. All right, then what I want you to do is I want you, we lost our tool, there it is. Okay, I want you to start playing with these, and these are your basic shapes. So I'm just gonna grab the first one so you can see, and I'm gonna go ahead and pull and drag. If I hold down Shift, I get a perfect circle. If not, I can just drag and make any sort of rectangle shape I want. Right? Once it's selected, up here at the top bar, you can go ahead and change your color. Okay? This is your main fill color here. You can add any of these colors. And the same thing is over here, we have a whole bunch of colors as well in the palette. And this is what you guys are used to using in Photoshop more. Remember too, you can pick any color you want, or up here in the corner, they have the other options for color systems that some of you guys have. I don't believe they have the 3D cube that you guys want that is in Procreate. But you can check it out as CMYK colors. There's also a color guide that has your tints and shades of opposite colors or different types of color combinations that you can use. So note that there's lots and lots of color settings. Over here, another spot of just swatches of color. But once again, the color picker you can use to add any color to this shape. Next to it up here, we have, this is the fill color, which could be nothing. It could be a pattern, a shape, a color, or nothing at all. When there's nothing at all, you don't get checkers like in Photoshop. You're just going to get this white background. All right, next to it is the stroke. So that can also have its own color and it can have its own width. So that's the width profile on the outside. So once again, this is just a vector shape of point to point. And then it has the idea of a fill and a stroke on the outside of it. The stroke can also be a pattern, a gradient, or a fill color. Now, everything in here doesn't need to be so geometric. When you get in, you'll see that these strokes all have different width profiles. So you can do things like thick to thin, and that will change it around the edge of the outside. You'll get thick to thin, right? This idea. I'm going to command plus so you can see what I'm doing. Remember command minus, command plus zooms in and out, and command zero zeroes something out. Other things that you can do to the outside line is you can change what it actually is. It doesn't need to be a solid line. It could be more like calligraphy, thick to thin. And you can even do like paintbrush marks or all sorts of different edge marks in here. Or something like pattern jeans. Don't ever use pattern jeans, please. Please don't. Go through those tools again now that we know a little bit more about how to use them. So once again, pull down this box, twirl it out by holding on the edge of this bar, and it will pop out. The first one we've already gone over is our square. So you can pull the square. You can hold down Shift to make a perfect square. And you can use Option Alt to draw from the center of things. So if you wanted another square within inside the center of the square, you could draw it that way. With the arrow, you can pick these up with the black arrow and move everything at once. You can drag through to grab all these, and if you're on the edge and you move, all four will move at the same time. You can also select them all and hit delete. Let's move on. The next one is our rounded edged one. And the same thing, you can use Shift on this one or Option to draw from the center. And this is going to be more like your stop signs. And what you can do is you can grab these little tiny circles and you can create more of an arc all the way down to a circle on shapes. Now, if you take the white arrow and you just grab one part of it and pull down, it will just move one corner down too. So that's that idea, once again, that the white arrow can be part of something for shapes. All right, note too special on that shape. The next one is your circle one. So you already have this. And if you hold down Shift, you get a perfect circle. If not, you have an oval. And the same thing, if you want to draw from the center, you can hold down Alt, go right next to it, and you could put another circle inside of it, right? And that circle could be selected, and it could have a different fill and a different stroke and all that sorts of great stuff. Ooh, instant logo, look. Next one is going to be the polygon tool. And this one works with the arrows. So if you up arrow on your keyboard, it adds more sides, or down arrow will go all the way down to a triangle. So there is triangles in here. It's under the polygon tool. And the same thing with this one, you can do Shift, or you can do Alt to draw from the center. All right, so play with the different keys, Shift, Control, Option, Alt, Command. I'll usually do something different for each of the tools. And once again, I can select and just hit delete. The last one on here, well, second to last one, is the star. So this is your basic star that you don't want to get because everybody has this canned star shape. What you can do with stars to create them a little bit different is when you're pulling on it, you can hit Shift and it will go straight up and down. Next one is Option. An Option will just change how steep it is. Option, Alt, right? And then Command is the best because Command, you can actually pull the peaks of the star out as far as you want to create some difference. Now, not only can you change the depth of it, But if you are pulling it out and you go up arrow, you can add more or less spokes of the star, all the way to, wow, I'm on sale, right? That sort of logo, that sun logo. I'm gonna take off the stroke so you can see my points. Okay, so underneath the star, there's a lot of shapes that are useful for graphics. So once again, when you're holding it down, you can up arrow or down arrow for more or less spokes. And then I want you to try to use command to change the depth of it. So as you're pulling it, you have to do it at the same time. As you're pulling it out, you can hold command at the same time